I liked it. I can't believe it. I liked it. I thought everybody was saying this movie had problems and it was so polarizing, but I fucking liked it. It didn't make sense for the longest time, and then it made sense. And now I'm gonna make no sense talking about it.
Tenet. Nolan's Tenet has surprised me with its confusion, worried me with its extended pacing, but finally ended with my total approval. I can't believe how much I like this movie. Its bombardment of plot and time elements and quick-witted dialogue, made ever harder by Nolan's continuously bad sound mixing, will turn a lot of people off. I understand exactly why some don't like it, and find its endless jargon off-putting. I'll tell you once again, I missed so much of the dialogue. I just couldn't hear shit with that bass. But I caught the gist and was able to play along. And lost as I was even halfway through its laborious 150-minute runtime, a moment deep into it made my eyes widen. I smiled as my jaw dropped. I began to understand. Tenet does what so many movies fail to. It brings all its complex elements along the way to tie up to its finale wondrously. Believe me, if you make it to the end without ripping your hair out wondering what the hell is going on, you'll get it. Nolan's work has long been called things like cold and unemotional, and methodical and calculating, robotic. These are the kind of things you hear when people describe a Christopher Nolan movie. Tenet, I'm sure, fits both those bills, but it may be why it works so well. Holy shit, the teeth pulling scene at the train station, oh my fucking god. I love the way that's shot. It's so quick, it's so cool. The bungee jumping scene, amazing spy shit. You know, it's strange for me to talk about this movie the way that I am. I really loved Nolan's work when I was younger. Now I watch his stuff and all the flaws tear the magic out. He has almost always made horrendous editing choices, and mixed his sound so that the action is always great. But the words you're trying to hear, well, aren't. That's why they sound so epic and, like, amazing, and you're really in there for the action scenes and that kind of stuff. But when you're trying to listen to dialogue, holy shit. Inception, I couldn't hear half that movie too the first time I saw it. Now Tenet, maybe I heard less than half. It wasn't until Dunkirk that everything changed. That amazing movie blew my mind and was the intro to a new Nolan. Gone was the ludicrous editing and puzzling shot decisions. I see that same new and improved Nolan for Tenet. Ideally, it's kind of like Inception. Technically like Dunkirk. And thematically like Interstellar. This is not an easy movie to explain. I'll do my best. And keep in mind, you're gonna see me heavily Google shit while I'm talking because I still don't know what the fuck was going on. I've seen the movie twice now. Twice. And the second viewing, I caught so much more, and then it started making a lot of sense, and then the end, and now it makes less sense. I know what happens, but I don't know why or how, or even what happens, actually. It's like knowing what happens makes it harder to understand. The movie opens quickly with a terrorist attack on the Opera House in Kiev. It's sensational. The best opening of all of Nolan's work. And not like Wally Pfister lying about the shitty opening of Dark Knight Rises. Fuck you, Wally. I didn't forget that shit. The camera glides around seamlessly, and the sound effects are so good it is frightening. Remember what I said about Nolan's sound mixing being terrible for dialogue? Well, here's where it pays off. That opening sounds amazing, and I saw it in a Dolby theater, so the seats were fucking shaking with every gunshot and explosion. Absolutely incredible. The Opera House setting is perfect. I've never seen such a methodical execution of guys in a narrow hallway like that before. It's so good. It's got all of the best of Nolan, just like Dunkirk did. Just these great shot choices, and it's really quick, but not too quick like his other movies have terrible editing where it cuts way too fast, but now it's just right, and it's, again, seamless, and the camera's gliding around, and you're so quickly thrown in there, just like the beginning of Dunkirk. This movie starts with a bang, almost literally. It's an awesome opening, an awesome movie, and there's just so much established, and this is the good and bad part of Nolan, is that he throws too much at you, and he tends to do a lot of it through the dialogue, which, again, you can't hear, but he's also good with the visuals, too. So in the opening, there's a lot of stuff happening, and even seeing it for a second time, I was still having trouble keeping up all the way. I still don't know why John David Washington is there. What a great way to open a movie. Again, as you get older, you start to appreciate settings and backgrounds, like I was talking in my Death Note review, because you realize how hard it is to get these things for a movie and to get the money and the time to film. And the fact that it's this giant, opera house, and the way the terrorists come in, and just the way the counter-terrorists gas the whole place so that, they knock out the people so that they're safe. It's just perfect. It's just perfect, awesome, terrorist and counter-terrorist stuff and spy shit in here. John David Washington slips in as an American CIA agent undercover and blends in with the bad guys. I think. Why he's there, I'm still not sure. He seems to find a certain man who's a target. But before that, the counter-terrorists release a gas. I have to assume the sleeping kind, you know, through the vent and into the opera house to knock out the hundreds of hostages to protect them. The terrorists have masks. Everyone has a mask. We've only begun the confusion. Washington has a close call when he's discovered. You ever talk about Tenet, Czar? You haven't been in one of my reviews in a long time, fat cat. But is saved by a mysterious gunman who fires a bullet backwards to save him. It's not gonna make sense. But he gets captured anyway. By Russians. They detain him at the train tracks, where they torture and kill all his colleagues in front of him, and torture Washington, who has remained nameless, for information. Washington doesn't submit. He shoves from his bound chair into his friend's hands, who has secretly pulled out a cyanide pill. Washington bites down for his own suicide. But it was all a test! He wakes up alive in a bed on a tanker, with Martin Donovan explaining that he has passed. So, I don't think the whole thing was a test, just the pill itself was not actually a suicide pill, and put him in a coma. So that's how he got away from the Russians, or they rescued him from the Russians, I think. So the whole terrorist attack at the beginning was real, I think. It had to be, right? Like, the whole thing wasn't just an orchestrated test. It was just the pill. Yeah? Welcome to the afterlife, he tells him. Donovan informs him more is at stake here, and that his duty transcends national security. And also, he's no longer alive, technically. Basically hinting at the end of the world sort of shit. Fate of the world stuff. And all that he has to give him is a gesture in combination with a word, as he interlocks his hands. Tenet, of course, is a palindrome. The same forwards as it is backwards. And the interlocking of hands mirrors itself while meeting in the middle. It'll open the right doors, but some of the wrong ones too. He is sent to a scientist played by Clemence Posey, who is Fleur Delacour in the Harry Potter movies. And the first instance he makes use of Tenet. Here the movie's main ideal is taught to Washington, and us. Inversion, not necessarily time travel, but objects that are moving backwards in time. It's actually not as dumb as you might think. Rack your brain making sense of this later on, though. She demonstrates this with bullets, and shows how the inverted ones can be tampered with by their interaction. They're caught when they've actually been dropped. Caught also instead of being shot. Just watch this scene. Just watch it. Washington protests the nonsense of something moving backward in time around an environment that is moving forward. What about free will? Nolan writes him saying out of absolutely nowhere. I laughed so hard. I laughed! Because it's not completely out of nowhere, but it's out of nowhere in the discussion, because they're talking about the inversion of time for bullets, but then he's just like free will when it's going to humans and controlling your fate, and I don't know, it just felt like out of nowhere. It makes sense, but it's silly, but I like it. It's still silly. The scene has to mirror the explanation in Minority Report, where Tom Cruise has to solidify fatalism to a doubtful Colin Farrell. It has to mirror it, right? Like, it's the same scene, it's the same idea.
But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precongs see the future, and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop it. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
Yes, it is. You're talking about predetermination, which happens all the time. Why'd you catch that?
Because it was gonna fall.
You're certain?
Yeah.
But it didn't fall. You caught it. The fact that you prevented it from happening doesn't change the fact that it was going to happen.
Or is that determinism? Fatalism? Determinism? What's the fucking difference? Wait, what is it? Fuck, I'm not gonna... Oh, the difference is so subtle. Is it Clemence or Clemency? Clemency? Posey? Clemence's line here is an important one. Don't try to understand it. Feel it. Instinct. There's a lot of that in here. One can't help but realize Nolan is talking directly to the audience about the movie they're going to experience. So we're tasked with don't try and understand it, which will help you a lot. Just feel it. Feel it. Which is funny because Nolan's accused of being unemotional and robotic and cold and all that jazz. This movie kind of is like that, but there's a reason. I think so anyway, and I can't spoil it. This also helped me to enjoy the ride, as I had to stop freaking out about how lost I was. There's a lot of lines in Tenet about belief and determinism, or fatalism, or controlling your own destiny and not being able to, and then being able to. What role do we play in our fate if our future has already been written? Can we change that? How can we change that? What are the consequences of changing that? Are there any consequences of changing that? There's just so much paradoxical shit in here. I love that idea of going against your destiny, of having complete control of where you end up. Time travel has always been a tricky issue in movies. It's a lot of moviegoers' bane, honestly. And I've always despised the ones that wrap up too neatly. Which is why I fucking hated the end of Looper. God, just the way it neatly wraps up, the way Joseph Gordon-Levitt it's so dumb. It's too easy. But without spoiling Tenet, things tie up here too. But they make sense. Should a movie involving time travel or time inversion ever make sense? Now I'm questioning my movie morals. She tells Washington that the inverted objects are from the future, and have been sent back to the past for nefarious reasons. She believes it's involved in something to wipe out the entire past. I think. Washington has her examine the metal of the inverted bullets, which they trace to Mumbai, to an arms dealer by the name of Priya Singh. Washington needs a meeting with him. He needs a lot of meetings. He's aided by Robert Pattinson's Neil, who looks like he comes out of nowhere. Or maybe he doesn't. He orders a vodka tonic for himself as they speak, and a Diet Coke for Washington. He knows Washington doesn't drink on the job. But how does he know? You'll see. I just read that Pattinson said he based his performance on Christopher Hitchens. I can't believe it, but at the same time I can. That's just hilarious. But regardless, he's so good in the movie. He's always been a great actor. Huh, yeah, that was probably a little jarring, but I got a haircut. It was getting out of control, and now I don't look like shit anymore. Well, I still look like shit, but not as much. People still give him shit for Twilight, but he was young, and he needed the work, and he hated doing it. Team Edward. Good girl. Hey, good girl. Washington and Neil infiltrate Singh's building by bungee jumping smoothly up it. I love this. They take out the guards and apprehend Singh. All true spy shit. This is such a fucking cool scene. This whole movie's fucking cool. Or who they think Singh is. Cause that dude is just a cover for the real Priya Singh, who is the woman there. Tenet gets him a discussion with her. She has sold the bullets to the villain of the movie. Someone who can communicate with the future. The way to the villain of the story is through his wife. Washington is told this in a meeting with Michael Caine. And Washington's no-named protagonist is played with all the confidence of a leading man and the suave of a new 007, always flirting with death and his enemies. I forgot to mention how great Washington's performance is. It makes perfect sense why Nolan cast him. He has the bravado of James Bond, and the swagger of a man who knows what to do with the time he has. It's such an awesome role. He's so good. He's so much fun to watch. Him and Pattinson, it's just so fun. It's just awesome, great, realistic spy shit. The wife is played by Elizabeth Debicki. Debicki? Who was the only decent thing in The Miserable Widows. That movie fucking sucked dick. She's being blackmailed by her husband because of a fake painting she sold him. He threatened to go to the police if she doesn't remain under his control. He owns her and her relationship to her kid's son. The villain is Andrei Sator. Sater. Played brutally by Kenneth Branagh, who always shows his incredible range. I swear I can never recognize him in any of his roles. He looks completely different here than he did in Dunkirk, and also as Hercule Poirot on Murder on the Orient Express, even though he has the same face. I don't get it. I really don't. He's gotta have like fucking twins, doppelgangers or some shit. I never know it's him until the movie's over and I read the end credits to make sure I'm not going crazy. I'm like, is that Kenneth Branagh? His acting is so fucking good, it's always different. Anyway, Sator is merciless. A selfish narcissist whose communication with the future is integral to the end of the world. I won't spoil, but it's cool. I can't talk about plot points anymore as I will most assuredly give something away and I don't want to do that. And I think people should see this movie and decide for themselves. Tenet could be called cold and emotionless, but also I think misunderstood. There's something about it. Even during its long stretches of time where I had no idea what was going on. Even as I struggled to listen onto the obviously important dialogue I couldn't hear. I felt there was a purpose. Maybe this is Nolan's most brilliant film. Maybe. Only time will tell. I can't explain it. I love this movie. I really do. After a second viewing, I fucking love it. And it is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. But I feel there's something there in all the scenes. This is greater than the sum of its part. This is not just a movie. I think there's so much more on the screen. And I understand why people don't like it. I mean, I think it's one of those movies that will stand the test of time. I think we'll keep watching it and rewatching it, and there'll be so much more. It feels like there's so much more going on than we even understand right now. And this is what's going to be great about seeing the film essays from this movie the next year, several years, and it's going to be awesome. And that's really a great movie if we just keep talking about it and keep wanting to watch it. I want to keep watching it, despite its frustrating last act and the action scene that really doesn't make sense, but it does and it doesn't. I kept wondering why so much of the action was slow and almost drawn out. Like the plane they run into a terminal to break into to get the painting. It feels like there's something there in all the scenes. It feels like an opera. No doubt there are things I missed all over the place dealing with inversion. Even the score itself at times sounds inverted. Because it must be. The dialogue as well, in a scene dealing with two rooms, and that's all I'll say. Always during Tenet, I felt like an outsider looking in, merely observing the movie rather than experiencing it. But then it got to where it was heading, and suddenly what I had been feeling made perfect sense. An outsider looking in. Suddenly the drawn-out moments glue together. Suddenly those puzzling things hit you like a ton of bricks, and you smile at it all coming together. At least I did. People are claiming that there's no time travel in this movie per se. But how? How else does that end happen? Never mind. There is definitely time travel, or time shifting of some kind. Whatever you want to call it, but it's going to blow your mind if any of this stuff sounds up your alley. The more I think about Tenet having left the theater, the more I like it. I will definitely return to see it again. And again. Even knowing what happens, I'm still not sure I knew how it happened. Or when it happened. But think about it, isn't this the highest compliment I could give a movie like this? I'm just glad to be back in theaters again. It had been around 7 or 8 months since I'd been in a theater because of COVID. They required masks for this viewing, and I kept mine on for most of the time. I felt like Washington with his oxygen mask since his inverted lungs can't breathe normal flowing air. Tenet has got me thinking. It's a provoking piece that rewards the viewer if one is so inclined to be rewarded. This is not one of those typical feel-good blockbusters, but an ambitious story that pays great homage to the spy genre, while originally inventing a new concept that'll have us all rewatching. I love the opening, and I greatly liked its ending. The middle portion will require massive analysis, but I'm willing. It's very well shot and framed. Did he team up again with Hoyt? Nolan once again has teamed up with Hoyt Van Hoytema. Amazing DP, amazing cinematographer. They had previously worked together on Dunkirk and also on Interstellar. The best DP Nolan has ever worked with. Better than you, Wally. Yeah, I'm taking shots at Wally. Nolan has finally found a cinematographer perfect for him and an editor. Because holy shit, his editing and shot choices before were fucking awful. Well, not always, but there were so many flaws in his older works. But ever since Dunkirk and now this, he has found an editor. Jennifer Lame. She was awesome. Great editor. Okay, so it looks like it's the first time she's collaborated with Nolan. Amazing. She was perfect. She made all his stuff better. No weird pauses or hanging off things or cutting off actors' lines before they finish speaking it in a jarring manner that's not good. And with a terrific score by Ludwig Göransson. He also scored Black Panther, but in Tenet, his score is fucking incredible. And it fits so perfectly. I'm glad that Zimmer and Nolan didn't get to work together this time, because I think Zimmer is scoring, I don't even remember what movie he's going off to. But it worked out. Ludwig did a great and an incredible job. The music is, like, so eerie and tension building, and then it's just right. It just works. It's not annoying. It's not in your face. It's perfect. And throughout it all, you will be confused at certain shots, certain scenes, certain lines, but they will pay off when it's over. Even that ridiculous close-up on Branagh will be understood. Now, that isn't to say Tenet will logically make perfect sense, because I'm sure it won't. I'm sure there are plot holes, and I'm sure even though it ties well together, there will be loose ends and questions. But I like it all the same. I'm particularly fond of the scene of Washington taking out those goons in the kitchen, because it's exactly as it would happen in a spy movie. It's just quick and methodical. There's no, like, extended fight scene. There's no music blaring in your face. It's, like, quiet, aside from the sound effects, and he just beats the living shit out of them really, really quickly. You know, just the way he punches that guy really fast, and then he uses the cheese grater and the other guy in the dishes, and that's it. It's just you know, in and out, and that it's great. It's so great. And think about Interstellar. Think about the future of mankind hinging on the love of a father for his daughter. Think about that similarity. Nolan's Fate of the World movies burdened on the backs of a few relationships, and also a certain character's final ending that instead of remorse leaves gratitude. I can't wait to be grateful again. But yeah, there's a reason they said it was Nolan's most ambitious film. I think Nolan said that himself. The number of locations they shot, the practical effects, the real plane crashing into the terminal. This is all great. The movie looks amazing. It sounds amazing. People are just mad about the plot and the coldness of the characters, but I think that's the point. And an outsider looking in, I really can't say more than that aside from think about time travel and think about how it's been done before. You're an observer. I think he perfectly framed this story. I want to go back again. That's the biggest thing. I want to see this movie again. This is my favorite Nolan film. This is my favorite Nolan movie. I'm shocked that I'm saying that without giving too much away. I love the relationship between Washington and Pattinson. It's such a great relationship. It's so fun and wonderful to watch. And Elizabeth Debicki, she's so good and vulnerable in this. And again, I called it in Widows, that piece of shit movie. It's supposed to be a female empowerment piece, and ironically, it sucks dick. Absolute trash film, miserable experience. And I wrote Elizabeth Debicki was the only good part. I hadn't seen her in anything before. I think she's been in other stuff, but I don't know. And in this movie, I loved her. She was great. But you know, I'm gonna watch it again just to see if parts of the beginning mirror the end. Maybe like Fearful Symmetry, you know, that chapter in Watchmen in the graphic novel. I never saw the movie, but the graphic novel is one of the greatest things ever written. And also, I still don't understand what was happening with the BMW and the fire truck and the switching and the... Oh my god, I'm saying too much. Another review.